Hey everyone, I would say it's another week of Find Your Film, but this time out, it's sort of a director spotlight. I'm going to call it a movement spotlight. This week we are covering Dogma 95. Dogma 69 is Eric Holmes. He is spearheading this episode, and his camera is shaky cam. Bruce Perky's Perk Me 56. He is pretending to shake a cam. I am just Greg Srizavasti. I'm not doing the shaky cam. There's a reason. Eric Holmes is there a reason why you're doing the shaky cam in the way it relates to Dogma 95? Can you give us a little bit of background regarding this?
Well, as per one of the rules of the Dogma 69 Podcast Association, we must we must record all of the podcasts handheld.
Oh wow, handheld like this, holding it. We have to hold the computer handheld. Oh,
Yep.
that's interesting. That's gonna make a shaky cam for the viewer, Eric Holmes. Yeah.
It makes the film review experience pure, and that's what we're looking for mostly when doing film reviews, is to be as pure as possible. It's all about the film review and not about special effects or
or or the vanity of the critics. Or
yes, we want people to pay attention to the review itself and not anything else that's might be going on screen that could distract them from the review.
Oh boy. Oh boy. So first off, Eric Holmes, in all seriousness, why was Dogma 95 something you wanted to use your turn up as far as our director spotlight universe? Why was this very important for you?
It was something I heard, like, in film nerd circles, you hear a lot about Dogma 95, and I think a lot of people know about it, but I never really delved into it. It didn't seem like something that would be up my alley. But since we've been doing the director spotlights, and ironically, we're talking about Dogma 95 on director spotlights when we shouldn't be mentioning directors, but we'll get into that. But it just seemed like we do a film podcast, so this is definitely something within film history that I think people should probably know about, whether they like it or not, or appreciate it, or all that's here nor there. It just seemed like something interesting to talk about.
Now, part of our podcast listeners, if you are actually not just listening but watching this pod, we are getting dark. We're in darkened, soon to be darkened rooms, because one of the rules, I believe, for Dogma 95, Eric Holmes will be just breaking this whole Dogma 95 thing down, is we have to have natural light. Bruce Perky, my question to you is, before we break down the rules, were you a fan of that movement back in 95 to, I guess the official is 95 to 2004, 2005. There are still Dogma films being made, but were you a fan of that movement?
I was not even aware of it. I've never even heard of it until probably in the last 5 years.
Okay, well, yeah, I was a film critic back in the 90s, and then I started getting a lot of movies like Breaking the Waves and a lot of The Celebration, which we're going to get to in a second. And when I got, again, I'm going to tell a story one more time, is when I got The Celebration on VHS, I was supposed to interview filmmaker Thomas Vinterberg to talk about Dogma 95. And I thought, just without any research, since I wasn't doing my job as a journalist, I thought that movement was probably a little bit too pretentious for my taste. And I ended up not watching the VHS tape of The Celebration. It just sat on I didn't even return it like an idiot. It sat on my VCR for maybe years on end. And eventually I probably just junked it. But I realized probably, you know what? I never did realize it until Eric Holmes decided to pick Dogma 95. And I realized how 25 years ago, I made a horrible mistake by not doing a one-on-one interview with Thomas Vinterberg regarding his and Lars von Trier's intentions for creating Dogma 95. Eric Holmes, Dogma 95 is not Dogma 95 without a certificate, without a set of rules. Can you tell the initiates, people who want to learn about this movement, what are some of the rules? And how is that also, we're going to, I guess, also be talking about how it affects our own podcast, not just the lighting, pretty soon.
Yeah, well, it started off with Thomas Vinterberg and Lars von Trier. My initial thought was this was kind of like a pretentious, this is what the purity of cinema was. And after hearing like a couple of interviews, I think it was more, the intention was more of a, like a writing challenge. Doing the, like if you're, do the writers group and they'll be like, okay, you need to write a scene involving an apple and a boat. Okay, well, I got to write this script and it's got to involve an apple and a boat somewhere. And I think that they decided that they were going to set some guidelines or some rules based on what these movies have to fall into to be a Dogma 95 movie. The intention was to purify cinema, to make it just all about the story and not a bunch of extra stuff. But and some people in the Dogma 95 movies followed them. A lot of them broke rules here and there. But the spirit of it is to try to make it as pure as possible, following these rules. And I'm about to read the rules. Number one, we're not supposed to have notes in this podcast
No
as per
notes.
the Dogma 69, but I'm breaking it now because I have donkey brains and
Okay.
I cannot remember these things. But we'll just kind of go over the rules, and you guys having seen the movies, maybe we can kind of go through the rules one by one and kind of see maybe where that's a good idea for what they were intending, or maybe because some of these rules are kind of confusing, maybe just break those down.
Sure.
The first one's actually pretty straightforward. Shooting must be done on location. Props and sets must not be brought in. If a particular prop is necessary for the story, a location must be chosen where the prop is to be found. So this is basically if you're gonna shoot, if you're gonna make a movie about a fireman, and you have to find a firehouse to shoot at. If you want, you can't build a set. That's pretty self-explanatory. Number two, the sound must never be produced apart from images or vice versa. Music must not be used unless it occurs where the scene is being shot. And I don't know, at least the movie I saw, I think they broke that rule more than a couple times. I don't know if that has to do with J cuts or L cuts when editing, but I don't know about you guys, but I've seen that broken a couple times. The camera must be handheld. Any movement or immobility attainable in the hand is permitted. This means no dollies, no tracks, no tripods. And I think Michael Bay is a huge fan of that rule because he loves shaking the shit out of his camera.
But cranes are allowed. Cranes and drones.
No. Not unless you're holding the camera on the drone.
I was to say, I wondered, because I think that we'll talk about it later, but I think in one of them, they had a pretty high angle shot, and I figured they were holding it either on a ladder, maybe, or standing on a chair. Would that be allowed?
I would assume so.
Okay.
But that would be bringing a prop in technically. So maybe if the chair's already there, because you could grab a camera and just hold it like way above your head and standing on a chair that just happened to be in that room.
That's it.
You're not
That's
bringing
probably,
a prop
or
in.
standing on a bed or something. Because I was thinking in the celebration, there's a scene that kind of does that.
Yeah, I know the exact shot you're talking about, and I was like, wait a second. And actually, that kind of not to detract too much, but stuff like these rules, like as I don't know about you guys, but as I'm watching them, I have the rules in my mind, and so I see certain shots, I'm like, wait a second, how'd they do that?
Mm-hmm.
I was in as specific as you or Bruce, to be honest. I was looking at more of the spirit, maybe because I'm not detail oriented, and that's why you guys really helped with the show. I'm very bad, as you guys know, with details. So it was more about the spirit, and we're gonna get to my choice down the road, and I think it really fit within the spirit of Dogma.
I almost felt like also at a couple times I thought that maybe the directors that were really into it, or whoever they were, almost found it as a challenge to see if they could sneak in one rule break. I felt like that was happening sometimes, where it's like it was really, really truthful, really right on as far as I could tell. And there'd be one thing that was just screamed to me like, wow, that's not right. So I'd be interesting to talk about that too. So
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Next is number 4. The film must be in color. Special lighting is not acceptable. If there's too little light for exposure, the scene must be cut, or a single lamp be attached to the camera. And hence the natural lighting on this here podcast. You'll notice my backlighting is not turned on. Optical work and filters are forbidden. The filters make sense. Optical work, I guess I'm not too sure what optical work is. But
optical work would be like optical effects, I think. So like for example, they don't do optical credits. Like if you notice the credits, they're like written on a piece of paper or something.
Yeah.
Whereas those would be optically attached to the film in a processing of the film later.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Very cool.
Well, the one I saw broke that rule right off the bat because they actually had the anyway. Number 6, the film must not contain superficial action, murders, weapons, etc. must not occur. Now this one I don't get. I think I understand the spirit of what they're going for. They want real stories, so they don't want if a couple's sitting there having having dinner, and then all of a sudden a fight breaks out or a shootout occurs. Obviously that's not something that would typically happen in that situation.
And make it organic, a scene that's more carved out from reality than some kind of stylized moment.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, that one just kind of confused me. I don't think I fully understand that rule, but I think I kind of get the spirit of it, but whatever. 7, temporal and geographical alienation are forbidden. That is to say, the film takes place here and now. So there are no futuristic movies and no what do you call those? The past movies.
Proustian films, Marcel Proustian films, right, Bruce?
yes, and I would suggest that the celebration breaks that rule at a certain point.
Oh, really?
Okay. We'll have to get into that. I'm not quite sure, but I will be very I would like to know about that one. Genre movies are not acceptable. This is the big one. Well, we'll come back. We'll come back to that because the last two are pretty.
That's a rule that you have to break because that's what story is.
But we'll come back to that one because that's the one rule where I'm like, what? Well, anyway, real quick, number 9, the film must be Academy 35 millimeter. And I found out that it doesn't mean it needs to be shot that way, but it means it needs to be presented that way. So technically, none of us have watched a Dogma 95 movie yet. And the last one, the director must not be credited. But I want to go back to rule number 8, the genre film. I believe the Dogma movies themselves are a genre, but how do you define genre?
That's a rule that's just, they made it. I think Vinterberg in that podcast, a recent podcast, I think with Roger Deakins that I heard, he was just saying some of the rules, it was made over several hours with Lars, they're just talking, and the way he made it sound was there are a couple of rules that were ridiculous in concept. And maybe he was just giving himself, maybe he was just being very self-deprecating. And I think that if he was sort of telling the truth, it would have to be on that genre rule because that's moronic. I don't know.
I think that the only way you could kind of think of it is that it probably is forcing the movies that they're doing to try to not be categorizable as a genre. So you wouldn't say it's a Western, it's a horror movie, it's a sci-fi movie, it's a romance, it's a, I don't know, whatever. So I think they're trying to say like whatever they're doing, it's going to push it to be genre bending, I guess. That would be, right. I think, the spirit of it once again. But once again, that's the haziest rule of, I think we all agree.
Yeah.
Oh, I one little proposal. This is a proposal just for future. It would be really fun sometime for us to make the Bizarro version of the Dogma 95 rules, but we're going to call them the De Palma 75 rules.
Very good.
Yes.
Everything must be in split screen. The
Yes.
background and foreground must be in the same resolution.
Director's
Please.
name must be bigger than everything else.
Yeah. Okay. I know this is Dogma. We're going to get to it in a second, but I got to do the De Palma reference. Years ago, a buddy of mine, his name's Jordan, he asked De Palma during the interviews, Mr. De Palma, I'm just wondering, why do you use split diopters so much in your movies? And he looked at my buddy Jordan and he said, when you look at something, is something in the background less, you see the foreground and the background the same way. And that's how I want to shoot it. So that was his, yeah. So that was his answer to using split diopters. So eventually, yes, Bruce, that isn't a great idea. We're going to do a De Palma 70,
75. He has to be
75.
75.
De Palma 75. Very, very good. Okay, so Eric Holmes, are we going to start off with the films first, or the film that started off?
Well, let's start off with the one we all saw. That would be Festin, or A Celebration, and that is Dogma #1. And so, hey, this is a story about a bunch of people, bunch of family, friends and family coming together for the patriarch's was his 60th birthday.
I believe 60th birthday, right? Yeah.
And it's pretty dry until the dad's son,
Eldest son. Yeah, the eldest son.
he gives a toast. He
Yeah.
gives a very
the toast to end all toasts.
Yeah, he gives a very personal toast, and basically mentions that the dad had molested him and I believe his sister, who had killed herself. Oh, you know what? That was that the
That's not a spoiler.
flashback thing you were talking about?
There's a point towards the end. I'm not going to spoil things, obviously. There's a point towards the end where I feel like we go into an altered state, which might represent a change in time and place that's not natural.
Okay.
That happens to one of the characters. And I think that is kind of goes against the spirit of that. It doesn't, like, in a sense, it's kind of like a dream sequence or something that's happening, which doesn't seem like should be something that should be in any of the Dogma movies.
Okay. Oh, I guess as far as that rule goes, so I was under the impression that the rule was it has to represent today.
Well, how is it stated again? Like, what's the wording on that? Because I think it says something like
I close it and I'm not allowed to open notes again.
Yeah, you're not allowed to.
Anyway,
but it's I think the spirit of it was don't do a
period piece
or a futuristic movie. It's like if we did a Dogma 69 movie today, it would be set in 2021. It would be set today in 2021, not in a year from now or a year ago. But anywho, yeah. But that is a good point. That is a good point.
Could you guys find, regarding the celebration, I think none of us have seen the celebration, or like Eric, you were saying Festen, and Bruce, what were your original thoughts on the celebration? Obviously, the movie's considered, is widely critically acclaimed. Does it deserve all of those wonderful accolades?
I think it does. I think it's really good. I think it's a great way to kick off the movement, and obviously if people agreed, the movement probably would have died really quickly. But what I think was strong about it, and we can all talk about it, is it kind of has this very stodgy traditional setup, right? All these, siblings going to their father's celebration, and you got the fuck up brother that's kind of rowdy and crazy. You have the conservative straight-laced brother. You have the sister who's kind of in between the two. And they have this whole setup. And for the first half hour, I thought, oh boy, this might be kind of long. It's going to be a lot of celebrations and speeches and just, talking about their relationships and where they've gone with their lives. But the minute that toast happens, the awkwardness and the tension is just cranked to a whole different level. And then from that point on, it becomes kind of this, I don't know, how would you guys describe it? It's almost like a
dark comedy.
Yeah, dark comedy.
Yeah.
Perfect. Dark comedy, tragedy. Yeah. A mixture of both.
And it's really interesting things like, and we don't want to give everything away because we want people to watch it, but certain things like the second the shit goes down, there's this really interesting moment where all of the kitchen and all the staff says, grab everyone's keys and hide them. We're gonna
That's fun.
basically saying like we're gonna make this shit go down here with everybody in the same spot, unable to escape. And that was the moment where I was like, oh wow, this is good. And I can't wait to see how this plays out. And from there on, it rolls, and I think it's excellent.
Yeah, for me, regarding this, one thing I do miss is, they're shooting what in mini DV, those DV cameras back in the day, and they're obviously not as, they don't even have as good of a resolution as a digital camera, like one of the cameras we have today. And you just forget about how bad the resolution is because you're so immersed into the story. And Eric, you were talking about the handheld nature. You're holding your computer and you're shaking it. I actually ignored that movement because I thought it was so pretentious. But regarding those rules, by using your actual body, your hands to hold the camera, you feel like you're actually part of the movie a lot more, especially regarding the plot line of the celebration, where you want to feel really close knit with what's going on within the drama of this family. So I thought the handheld stuff was great. And I do miss that horrible resolution from the celebration. I wish there were more movies like that today that we could see, because now we see all these, even if it's an indie film, the digital image looks so nice that sometimes the scenes themselves look very staged and fake, and they look like TV movies almost. And something like the celebration may not have as great resolution as 100% of movies today, but you probably will remember more images from that movie than a lot of the movies that are shot in better resolution today. So I think part of the Dogma 95 movement is talking about stripping away all of these big studio rules, the lighting, what you were talking about, the music, Eric, to actually enhance the story and to make it more memorable. And I think that's why the celebration is one of the top Dogma 95 movies, and why even to this day, with all of its lack of tech, it's still a very memorable movie-going experience. So Eric, your thoughts on Celebration?
I was gonna mention that at the beginning of I don't know if it was shot in order. It's not one of the rules. It has to be, I don't think, but it feels like at the beginning of the movie they're trying to do all these fancy camera angles and like frame the shot real well, and then Bruce mentioned earlier that shot where it goes up and then kind of comes down. I was actually kind of rolling my eyes at a lot of that, and I think that's part of why I didn't really take to this movie right away. That, and it almost seemed like they were like, see, even with our restrictions, we can do these cool camera stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but what's the movie about? And then as the movie progresses, it almost seems that that stuff, it pretty much as soon as the story kicked off proper, all that stuff went out the window. And it was just about pointing the camera at the people and let's see these people's emotions, how they react to one another, and how the story plays out. And then it gets really good from there.
Yeah.
And then
I would.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I would agree absolutely what you're saying, and I think what you see happen is, so once the story happens, or like it turns, like we just talked about, once that story turn happens, what's really good about the constraints is that it now you have this real geographical place. You have an actual place. They don't have sets. So you're having characters throughout the rest of the thing constantly escaping or re-entering areas or trying to get away from this incredibly awkward and tense situation, or trying to get back to it. So then all of a sudden it's just the motion and the movement of these characters with the situation, as opposed to, like you said, tricky camera moves and stuff when nothing's happening to try to keep it interesting, I guess, as opposed to letting the story keep it interesting, which is what happens for I'd say the last, I don't know, 2/3 of the movie, which is great. So I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying there.
There is one technical thing that I was really impressed with, assuming they did it the way I think they did it. And it also kind of goes towards with these rules set in place. Well, before that, with these rules set in place, it feels kind of like watching a Tarantino movie, knowing going in that he doesn't use CGI. So when you see this great effect or great thing happen on screen, Usually with if you know the CGI is in there, you just kind of brush it off like, oh, there's no wonder to it. But then if you go in knowing that, oh, these are the rules that they always follow, then you got to, oh, how'd they do that? And there was one part in this, it was during early dance sequence where they're someone's playing the piano in the background. Well, knowing that, you have to use music that's within the scene. And so, obviously someone's playing the piano, but they keep cutting. And every time they cut a scene, you hear the ambient noise in the background go, every time. But the piano music is always on time. And there was a couple cuts where I heard that, because I was like, oh shit, they're cheating. They're just laying piano track over this, which is like one of the clear rules that you cannot do that. But then I heard a couple cuts in the movie where they cut from one frame to another, and the piano's still kind of on time, but I heard it jump a little bit. And then it cut again, and I heard the piano jump again. And I was like, holy shit, did they sync up that piano player with the cuts to this? Because that is freaking amazing.
Or they had enough coverage that they could sync up different takes or different camera. Like they had I don't know, 4 cameras in different places all filming while that piano was being played. But the same problem would occur though. You'd still have to sync them up. So.
And you have to have a piano player that's essentially a human metronome. Because they have a piano player.
Unless there was a player piano already at that location.
Yep. Either way, one of the fun things of watching these movies is stuff like that, where going in that they can't do these things that normally it would be pretty, like, you wouldn't even, banal, I guess is a word, you just wouldn't even think of it. But since you know that they're playing by these rules, and then you start noticing little tricks and stuff that they're doing, and it's really impressive a lot of times, like much more impressive than, hey, look at this cool camera move I can do, But,
yeah. Well, I think Winterberg said he spent 6 to 7 months editing this movie. I wonder if that's just normal anyway, to how long it takes to edit a movie. But I mean, I think he inferred that it was a pretty intensive editing process. And I'm sure with the resources they had, I can understand it's not exactly the easiest movie to piece together in the editing process. So that is the celebration, high marks for me. I love the whole drama behind it. And I'm glad it's the first one off the gate. So this didn't disappoint you, Eric? This high marks for you as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. And actually, had one of my favorite lines in it. I just want to know why you did it. It's the only thing you were ever good for, dude.
Oh yeah, dude,
there were knives coming out of the screen, just hitting me right in the heart when I saw that. I was like, what the fuck kind of evil bastard are you?
And I would also mention that this movie, of all, it is one thing it does. It's one of those a night. All this shit happens in basically over one night, which is always a kind of I like that kind of sub genre, not a genre, right? We're not allowed to do genre movies. And also, I can't think of a movie where hitting a glass to make a toast became more tension filled as the movie went on.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Because they did that every time they did that as the movie went on. You're like, oh fuck, now what? Now what's gonna happen?
Oh, God. Just
that
drink your drink and leave, man.
I hope that main actor from the celebration from Festen, I hope he has a secondary side hustle where he is an official Toastmaster at weddings and celebrations, because that would be an awesome side gig for that guy to have, So
I'd also like to point out the guy that played the brother, the fucking asshole.
Yeah,
dude, I just want to choke the shit out of him. Like not early on because I didn't know, but like once things started happening, his reactions toward things, like, oh, you little dirty bastard.
Oh, when he led a song, and her boyfriend had shown up. Oh my God. That was
that was something else.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that when her boyfriend showed up. It's like that maybe that was the turning point. Like I already kind of already saw him as his little asshole kind of head started peeking out a little bit, but yeah, when he's
So that is the celebration.
Spoilers, but yeah, the celebration is thumbs up for
Thumbs
sure.
up. Well, we would actually tell you guys where to find it, but we don't have computers or notes. So go to justwatch.com and figure out where Festin or
YouTube, I think.
YouTube. Oh, well, exactly. We saw it on YouTube. That's how I saw it on YouTube. I saw it on YouTube. If you go to Just Watch, thank you, Eric. It's hard to find. It doesn't say it's available anywhere, but you can currently, as of this recording, find a copy of Festin, aka the celebration, on YouTube. You don't need to find a really great Blu-ray copy because it's like a digital video mini TV shot. So it's
Can you imagine? Can you imagine wasting your money on a 4K release of this?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Right. So that is Festin, the celebration. We're gonna, I think, Bruce Perky.
Sure.
By the way, that's Dogma number 1, right? So
Yep.
can you talk about whatever Dogma number you have right now? What's the name of your film? And
Mine is Dogma number 3. If anyone else got Dogma number 3, it's Mifune. Did anyone else do Mifune?
Nope.
Aha! At least no crossover yet. So first of all, it was kind of out of default. My original thing was I randomly number generated and I was gonna pick a movie, and that didn't work out so well because, not surprisingly, a lot of these movies are really hard to find in any form. And I found a couple on YouTube, but they weren't like translated. And I was like, I can't. I have to give myself some help here. I really wanted to find one called Fuckland.
I was looking for that one too.
Just because I wanted to say Fuckland over and over again about my movie.
So disappointed that wasn't Dogma 69.
Yeah.
so
And I guess it's about the Falkland Islands, and it's kind of a comedic, like undercover, like satire on the Falkland Islands.
I would have been so disappointed.
Yeah. So I did Mifune. Mifune is pretty easy to find. I rented it on Amazon Prime. You can actually find this one probably because it's one of the earlier ones. It seems like it was pretty well funded and pretty well produced. I don't know who directed it, but it seemed to be Scandinavian as well. So it's probably in the group. I'm assuming one of the directors in that group. So interesting thing about this movie is it's a little, so you think that all these movies are going to automatically be kind of dark and really artistic and brooding and stuff. And this movie teeters on a light, kind of a romantic comedy. Believe it or not, you wouldn't think. Yeah, I know, right? So
were you disappointed because were you looking for something dark under Dogma?
No.
Or were you okay? Fair.
I really didn't have any expectations. I was going to get what I was going to get, So I was basing it on very little, like just a title and ability to find it. So, and I saw this and I was actually able to get it, so I did it because I didn't want to spend days trying to find one movie. So basic concept, it starts out with this guy. He seems to be kind of up, well-to-do businessman. I thought for a minute it was going to be like The Celebration because it starts with him getting married. His wife seems to be rich, rich daddy. He's a businessman. She seems a little bit self-obsessed. You only see them together for maybe the first 5 minutes of the movie. He gets a call or a letter, I can't remember what exactly, saying that his father has died. And she's like, what? You never even told me you had a father. And immediately he's kind of like, he doesn't want to talk about it very much. And you get the idea that he's kind of ashamed of it. And so he says, I'll be back in a couple weeks. I just got to go and take care of the affairs. He goes back home. It's a kind of a rundown farm in the country. His dad is, obviously passed away, and his brother is there. And it's almost, in some ways, it's almost like Rain Man, right? So his adult brother, lives on the farm, and his adult brother has some sort of mental deficiency or adult developmental disability of some sort, but he seems to be pretty high functioning, but you can tell he's somewhere in that spectrum. And he's just like Tom Cruise's character. He's kind of he's kind of the cool guy, and he kind of doesn't want to have to deal with his brother. He has to get the farm in order so he can either sell it or do something, basically. So what he does is he hires a housekeeper to get it all in order, help take care of his brother and get everything in order. Then you cut to her and you get a little backstory on her, and she's basically a high-priced call girl who is hating her life, and she just wants to get out of it for a while. So she just takes this job. So all these things are sort of tropey, but the Dogma 95 constraints on it really humanizes it and gives it like a lot more intimacy and personality than a movie like this would normally have. So I think once again, the constraints really helped the story, and by the end you feel like you really are living with real characters that you really like, as opposed to the kind of caricatures they could have remained in a a normal, more Hollywoodized type movie. It ends up being really, really good, really charming, really fun, and a pretty great movie. You love the characters by the end, all of them. I don't want to reveal some of the things, but there's a few scenes in there that are just spectacular, really fun.
I'm wondering.
I really liked it.
I'm thinking maybe this movie did well when it was released because it seems like a really good movie.
And I don't know if it's true because I was watching it on the computer. I usually we have a pretty big screen computer. I was watching on that, and my wife was in the background. She doesn't really care to watch these movies, but she said that looks like the main woman in this. She's a very, beautiful, blonde, Swedish type. I don't know if Sweden or Norway, whatever, woman.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, wasn't that the woman that was in High Fidelity? And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. So after the fact, if you guys want to look, we can find out if it was the woman from High Fidelity.
Probably.
My wife, it's about the right time period for it. I think this movie was from 98, maybe 97. The production values, once again, the production values are really good in this. The only time when I felt like it might have strayed is early on. He's doing like a kind of a Tai Chi kind of a thing before he goes back to the farm. Yeah. And I feel like there's kind of that stereotypical like samurai music kind of dropped into it. And I didn't see like a radio or anything next to him making that sound. So I felt like that was the one cheat, like almost on purpose. And Mifune is explained, and it is based on what you think it might be based on, but I won't tell you
in what context. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mifune, I can't wait to see that. That's currently available for rental, which is how Bruce got it. And Eric, you're going to be the last person because you're spearheading the show. I'm going to give you my pick. My pick is Dogma number 12. It's also known as Italian for Beginners. And Italian for Beginners, I looked at a whole list of, and I wasn't as revolutionary as either of you. I saw a whole bunch of dark and brooding movies directed probably by Lars von Trier and all these different people that I didn't want to actually think about. And then I saw this movie, Italian for Beginners. Seems like a really cool light romantic comedy. So unlike you, Bruce, I was going for, because I saw the name Mifune and I'm thinking, ooh, that might be a reference to Toshiro Mifune, and I'm sure that's dark. And I was wrong, obviously.
And it wasn't at all.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to scroll down. Ooh, Italian for Beginners. Seems like one of these sort of My Big Fat Greek Wedding kind of movies. So I'll just do it. And so it's currently streaming as we speak on Paramount Plus, Italian for Beginners. I actually highly recommend this movie to a friend of the show, our friend Angie Clark. She saw it and she ended up really loving it. I told her not to tell you guys that she saw it because this was all a big secret. I'm assuming, Eric, that's not your choice for Italian for Beginners. That's not your third choice. No. That's not good.
It almost was, but it was not.
Really? It almost was.
I'll get to the almost ones I had.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so Italian for Beginners, very simple story. It's a deacon or priest. He comes into a new church to sort of not just replace the head parishioner. I mean, the head priest. He's kind of burnt out, so he decides to. This guy, the replacement, he's taking over all the other priestly duties, like just the Sunday Mass and dealing with congregation and everything. So he's a temporary replacement for the head honcho over at the church. So he's currently living at a hotel because he doesn't know if he's going to stay there for a while. So this priest is just getting acclimated to his new neighborhood, and he's a very well-meaning person, but he's social enough as a priest, but slowly but surely he starts ingratiating himself to the townsfolk. There's a local who she cuts people's hair, and she's a very nice woman. There's another person who is the manager at a sports bar, which is located in a hotel. And the manager at the sports bar doesn't act like a manager of a sports bar. He actually acts like one of the just arrogant meathead patrons that you'd find at a sports bar. I love sports bars too myself, but he's as loud, if not louder, than the customers. So he's very obnoxious. And the hotel owner wants the hotel, I guess, concierge dude to fire this sports bar manager. The only catch is this concierge dude they're best friends. So it's a little push and pull. He doesn't want to fire his best friend from the hotel, even though the guy's a jerk. And so you have all these little these characters living in this town. There's also this woman who she works at a bakery and she can't hold a job down because although she's very attractive and she's very sweet and demure, she keeps dropping the pastries. So whenever she tries to take a pastry out, she'll just drop it. And you'll find out later why she's a total klutz. So ultimately, all of these people, their lives intertwine because all of them end up taking a class, Italian for Beginners. They all want to learn how to speak Italian. And it's just their story of all these disparate people living in this town and how they socialize once a week at this Italian class. And what's really cool about it is it's not predictable, meaning you don't see them completely bonding over and having all these really great arch dramatic moments. And Bruce, to your point, that's what Dogma 95 does for maybe this movie's considered a romantic comedy, but because it's not adorned with all the background George Gershwin type music or swooping visual moments, none of that stuff. This is more of, think of a romantic comedy, but done in a very DIY and very unadorned fashion. And what that does with the handheld devices and like Eric, there's a lot of close to close-ups, not close-ups like that, because that would be too stylized. Just the camera getting into the bodies and the faces of all these people, you get to really feel how they're feeling at the moment. It's one of those rare romantic comedies where you feel like The Celebration, like Festen, you feel like you're actually in the moment with them because of the way the camera is placed or the movement of the camera or the actors, that you don't feel like they're hitting a certain mark or they have to be in a certain position within the frame. It's a very well done film, Italian for Beginners. And even if you're not into Dogma 95, it works as a romantic comedy because you don't have to know anything about the movement to know that, wow, this movie is really interesting. Not many movies are like this, right? And so within that romantic comedy romance space, because it's under the Dogma 95 certificate, it's a very, very unique film. It's not deep like Breaking the Waves or even something like Festen, but as far as pure entertainment and really getting engaged with the characters, like I'm sure you got engaged, Bruce, with the characters in Mifune, this is a highly recommended Dogma 95 film. More importantly, highly recommended film just in general. Italian for Beginners, now streaming on Paramount Plus. So that was my Dogma 95 hat in the ring. Eric Holmes, Dogma 69. What was your pick? I think I have a feeling I know what your pick is. It's probably one of the most popular ones. Do you have a guess, Bruce? Do you have you know what? Why don't we guess, and then let's see if we're right. Okay, I'm gonna go first, and who knows? Maybe because I'm so stupid, I don't even know if it's probably not a Dogma film. Breaking the Waves. How about you, Bruce? Okay, Bruce.
No.
Julian Donkey Boy.
Nope. So right away, I was like, Julian Donkey Boy and the Idiot were out because I was like, well, either A, I thought maybe one of you two might do it, or B, I think those are the two that people would probably know most. So
yeah,
we could probably skip past those. Then I saw Fuckland. I was like, well, where's that one at?
Yes,
I can't find it. So Mifune was one that I was looking for. I couldn't find that one. Otherwise, we would have been doubling up on that. And then so I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll start at the last one, which I think is was it like Dogma 36 or something like that? Couldn't find it. And what's weird is the list they have is like 1, 2, 4, 15. Like they skip a bunch.
Okay.
I started with the last one, at least the last one that they had listed. And I was like, this one, nope. This one, nope. This one, nope. I just couldn't. I was like, dude, I did this Dogma 95 thing, and I think I fucked up because I can't find another one. So I was like, well, I know Julian Donkey Boy and the Idiots. I was trying not to do those two. I was like, I'm gonna have to do one of those two because they can't find any of them. And then I finally came across The Breadbasket, and I found it on YouTube. I'm like, perfect. I go on YouTube and I look it up, and I'm like, oh fuck, they only got like part of it. It's only like a half hour long.
Yeah.
And then I look it up, and I'm like, oh, it's only a half hour long. Fuck it. All right,
Oh.
Breadbasket it is.
Oh.
So I finally came across it. I'll just tell the story and then go on all the rules that it breaks, because it breaks damn near all of them. But it opens up with the guy looking inside of a fridge, just like I am looking into the camera right now. He's looking in the refrigerator and going around eating, and in the background you hear what do you call it? Like a playback of a phone call. And it's not quite an answering machine because it's an actual conversation between the guy eating and his mom. And he's like, what? I don't know why I'm so fat. Like he has weight, weight problem and body dysmorphia and all that stuff. And he's just constantly eating. Like he just can't stop eating. And then he goes, he talks to his buddy, and he talks about getting back. He's like, well, how do you get into acting? And it's like, well, you need a agent. So he's like, okay, oh yeah, I'll go talk to. Can I talk to your agent? He's like, yeah, I'll set up the meeting. So he talks to the agent, and the agent's like, yeah, I can get you work. Oh, you might want to lose a couple pounds. Oh yeah, okay. Like how many pounds are we talking? Then he leaves, and he's eating more and more, and his girlfriend's trying to be helpful towards him, and he's a real dick to her. And like this guy's just in general is just not a good guy, but he wants to lose weight, but he can't stop eating. Like not stop eating like oh, I haven't eaten for 3 days, I'm hungry, but I can't. It's like he's eating consistently, almost as much as he's breathing. I think he's eating more than he's breathing. And in fact, watching this movie, I was like, dude, I feel so sorry for that actor because they eat that much. Like I was getting sick just watching the food he was putting down. And then his life isn't going the way he wants it to. And a lot of it is because he's just kind of a shithead. And not because he's fat, but he just has a bad attitude about everything. Everything's everyone's fault but his. On top of that, it's not going as bad as he thinks it is. And then it ends in a certain way. Well, so his girlfriend comes home when he's supposed to be on a diet, and she's eating a hamburger because she's not on a diet. And then he just starts like reaching in, eating her fries. It's like, what are you bringing these here for? Just eating her fries, grabbing the hamburger. It's like, what the hell are you bringing this hamburger? And starts eating the hamburger. But then he starts like shoving it in her face. And I'm like, oh, dude, you crossed the fucking line. She gets up and she leaves. And then the ending stuff happens, and I kind of needed to talk about the ending because there's a part. All right, there's a part where he cuts himself, and I was wondering how, because a lot of time the idea of just random violence is against the rules, but again, this breaks almost all of them. I'll go through the list of that. But on top of that, it didn't look like it was makeup. It looked like he actually had cuts there. And I don't know if he maybe, bumped himself or scraped himself. And it's like, fuck. And then like, you know what? Fuck it. We'll put that in the movie. And so they, maybe it was just an accident that the actor had that, hey, cool. Now we can have you cut yourself because it's already there. And so might as well use it. Or it's either that, or he actually cut himself, one of the two. I'm not sure which one it is. Probably the first one, because it looked like it kind of healed over a little bit. So I think it was kind of already there. But anyway, this one's fine. I mean, it's only a half hour, so you give it a shot. It's decent short, but it's not nearly on the level of Fessin, or is it on the level of the two you guys were talking about? But one thing I thought was kind of interesting that I just started thinking, because the first thing you see is the title, the title of the movie. And normally in these, at least the ones I've seen, they'll usually write the title on a piece of paper and film it, or do something of that sort of This one was just a regular title that you would put in after, put in whatever editing program you have. And then he's in the, staring at the camera, eating. And then you hear the conversation with him and someone else playing in the background. And maybe they already had a tape recorder there that they could use as a prop. But right away, I'm like, dude, he broke 2 rules already. I'm not even sure if this is an Academy ratio. I have to look again to see. But then there's a bunch of the editing, like you'll have one character talking, and then they cut to the other character listening, but it's still the same. It's just still the same audio track, and it.
Oh,
And
you think that there's some sound monkeying going on there?
Yeah. And then I started thinking about this, and I didn't think of it as I was watching it, but I'm thinking about it like as we're recording this, and I kind of want to watch it again. I was like, did they just break every rule in Dogma 95, but make it appear that it's the most Dogma 95 movie?
No, that'd be funny. That'd be funny if they did that.
That kind of goes to my point that I think that some people took the challenge of seeing what they could sneak in too, and still get, like, it's kind of an iconoclastic sort of ethos anyway. So the fact of the person that might get into that would also want to break it, but try to get away with breaking it totally fits, I feel like. I have a question. What do you guys think about this? What do you think of all those rules is the most useful or the most impactful to actually use? Like what one of those factors do you think was the most impactful?
For me, the first thing that jumps out is the handheld camera, because that's the one. And I think to me that's the foundation of it. That's the idea of, what is it? Man with a camera? Well, right now these days, person with a camera, right? That's the idea. You don't have it fixed. I think that's the most important rule for me as a moviegoer.
And that reminded me of Maya Deren. Remember she talked about if you hold the camera and it's an extension of your body, and you're having to like you're actually watching and moving things based on where you're moving your body. So it became part of the actual physicality of yourself, what the camera was seeing. Although I think it might, for me, it's the location. I feel like having to use real locations, I think that really affected it, because not only does the space dictate the story somewhat, I think that such a huge part of filmmaking is staging and making sets and producing sets and making them to fit what story you want, as opposed to having the story have to work in the space that you have to find. I thought, to me, that really affected it. But I think the 2 things we're mentioning, and we'll see what Eric says, the 2 things we're mentioning really worked well with surprisingly stereotypically light material. I thought it really it elevated it by giving it a real grounded quality.
Yep.
We both saw kind of similarly stereotypical kind of movies that ended up being way better because of the Dogma factors. You know
why? Because of locations. For those 2 locations, it's like you feel that you are here. They're telling that you are here, as opposed to romantic comedies that are a transportive experience. Like, oh, you're on a boat and it's a luxury liner, and then now you're going to Paris. So that's that. Yeah, location is very important as well. Eric, what is your most important rule?
I'd probably go with I don't know that's the most important, but I would go with the natural lighting, because I like, and that comes with a caveat. I think natural lighting looks really good on camera. And if you can shoot, obviously if you shoot it at night, you're gonna have to have like lamps and stuff in the, not like studio lamps, but lamps in the living room or whatever, but just found lighting, I guess, and natural lights. I think it looks good, and it kind of tests your mettle as a cinematographer, because you have to you have to know how your camera works, and you have to you kind of have to work a little harder to get those really good shots. But if you can shoot in natural lighting and you can make it work, it looks fantastic. I don't think any of the Dogma 95 stuff I've seen, I don't think they've really nailed the natural lighting aspect, but I've seen some things in natural lighting where it just looks it looks great, and I think it looks better than actual movie lighting does a lot of times. But I just think it's important because it has the possibility of looking fantastic, but you have to try. You have to put in the work for it to happen that way.
How did yours look, Greg? Because I know Mifune looked surprisingly good compared to the look of Celebration, which was kind of, we talked about, kind of grainy and
close to grainy. Yeah.
yeah.
It
I
looked
almost
fine.
didn't think about it in Mifune. Mifune looked like, I mean, if you didn't tell me, I could say it could be a 90s indie movie, you know, a well-made 90s indie movie. I wouldn't think twice about it.
I would think with Time for Beginners, I would think twice about it because it feels like a movie that was shot for a little money, very, very indie. But I guess to your point, Bruce, there were a lot of movies. I'm thinking about like Ed Burns's The Brothers McMullen that had that look, that had look close to grainy movies of, yeah. So maybe I guess if it didn't follow those rules, the Dogma 95 rules, it would fit snugly into the romantic comedies of its time. But this was a little bit more special because I think this felt a little bit also with Dogma 95, at least with the Celebration and with the Time for Beginners, there's a sense that of course there's a script, but because of the camera or the lighting, like you're saying, Eric, all these different elements, you feel like the story is progressing at a natural pace. So it really feels lived in. So I think that's one of the, if we're going to close out, one of the legacies of Dogma 95 is using the principles of it to teach you how to make really good movies or tell real stories, is to make, hopefully, some of the best films are, you feel actually lived in and real. And that's the feeling I get from, I can't wait to watch more of Von Trier's work, to be honest, because that's a total blind spot within the realm of Dogma 95, and then also graduate and watch some of his other stuff as well, because I know he's mixed his tones throughout his brilliant career. So
his new stuff isn't very Dogma at all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, very visual.
Real quick, who's this Von Trier guy, and what does he have to do with Dogma 95?
Yeah, right.
And if you think about it, I think it's interesting because we were talking about Eric was saying how it's like it's giving them a exercise, like a writing exercise or a limitation. I think of another one I thought about was when all those famous directors did shot with that really old camera. Was it Millier's or who? I forget whose camera it was. David Lynch and all those guys, and they had to shoot it and edit in camera for 2 minutes or crank it and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I also think that this movement really fits in. If you think about, fits in with the time, because you think about, it's a reaction to the incredibly stylized and homogenized version that was coming out of the 80s movies. Just the same way that you get like all of the grunge or alternative and all this crazy music, it's stripped down and more punk rock in the 90s. This is kind of the film version of that, So I think it makes sense societally as well to see that coming up at that time.
I feel like that it's as pretentious as it sounds, it feels like an earlier form of removing gatekeeping in cinema, because the main thing is, besides being an exercise, is make it as cheap as possible and still good.
Yeah.
So you have all these rules, and these rules are to say that all those millions of dollars you don't need it now because we got rid of all that. This is all you need right here. It might actually be because I think the 35 millimeter, for example, is pretty anachronistic for today, because you literally can't do it. I mean,
right.
I'll give you $1 if you can tell me where to find 35 millimeter film and a camera that can, roll it for cheap. I think it'd be kind of neat to maybe revise the idea and then just do another, Dogma 95 list, just to give people, can only be shot on a cell phone, or, no lights, a similar spirit of it, but just kind of update it to the rules to where anyone can make a movie. And I wonder if that's the point. Like, look, you don't need a $1 million budget to make a movie. You just grab your camera and do it to it, Lars.
Well, and I don't think it's any accident that around the same time period you have like Rodriguez doing El Mariachi.
Yeah.
You've got Clerks coming out. You've got Blair Witch Project. You've got a bunch of other cultural touchstones happening in the Western, more Americanized world. making all these kind of kids. I mean, kids and all those kind of movies too,
Yep.
which leads right into Julian Donkey Boy and Gummo and all that stuff. So it was kind of in the air at the time, and I agree. Like, I think we are getting that somewhat now, but I think the difference is kind of in the same way as music. Like, once again, to go back to it, is now everyone has access to it. So the difference is then you might have 10 people doing it and taking the chance, and now you might have 1,000 people doing it. So it's much harder to kind of find the gems in the noise,
Yeah.
I think. But I think they're out there. I think people are doing it for sure.
I haven't seen the Florida Project or Tangerine. Okay. So when that whole movement several years ago, sort of with Soderbergh and the iPhone stuff,
Unsane, he did Unsane, yeah.
Unsane, and then he also did that. I think it's called High Flying Bird. Do you think that iPhone movement was, I mean, it ended pretty quickly, but did you guys like that movement? What it was kind of going for, just shooting everything on the iPhone? And do you think we need some? I think Eric, you were kind of pointing towards it, like maybe there should be. I think coming down the road, maybe a different kind of movement around
I think,
because
well, a lot of that is people getting boners over gear because you know, yeah, sure, you got a red camera and you can shoot in 8K or whatever, but look, if you're gonna play it on YouTube, what the hell do you need 8K for? And in fact, 8K, you don't even need that to project it on the screen. All that does is make the picture bigger. So if you didn't frame it right, you can zoom it in and it still looks good. So you can shoot in 1080p, you can shoot in 2K if you want, but you just have to be able to frame your shots. And being able to shoot in 8K just means you can be a lot more lazier with the way you frame your shots. But yeah, you can have the best camera in the world and you can have the worst camera in the world. It's just a matter of knowing what your camera can do and then maximizing what the camera is capable of. If you're shooting on a DV camera, just know that you're not going to be able to blow up any images because it's going to look like a bunch of little squares.
Yeah.
And if you have a big ass IMAX camera, just know that you're not going to be able to use natural sound because those things are loud and heavy. So,
Well, and I think that it also goes back to just maximizing and giving everyone permission. You can tell a good story at any level.
Yeah.
Like, I think if anything, this kind of movement or a new version of it just gives people permission to like make something, and you don't have to have the IMAX to make it great. And we talked, I mean, what are some of the movies we love? We love some of these great big movies, but we also in the last year loved Peckerhead, and we loved our PG Psycho Gormans, which are a minuscule budget but maximizing what they have and maximizing their creativity and maximizing what they're giving us on screen, compared to somebody, and we won't talk about the ones we talked about a million times, but somebody who has everything but only hits the middle. They don't.
Another thing about Dogma 95 that I completely forgot to mention, I really loved how I was not handicapped by the music, meaning I didn't have a great Spotify playlist to manipulate my emotions as it was cut and synced with a certain scene. I forgot to mention that sometimes just having what is it? Diegetic? The noise around you. Just the noise around you is enough, especially when you're telling a good story. And sometimes, as much as I love Hans Zimmer, and that's another conversation we'll get into down the road, Hans Zimmer and Zack Snyder, as much as maybe after we record this, I might just go out and start watching the Snyder Cut because I love being manipulated. But there's something to be said, a lot to be said about having zero things to listen into except the story and the noise that is coming out of people's mouths. I love that too. Eric Holmes, what you could say?
I was just thinking this wouldn't be a cheat because Greg, you could do the or Bruce do the toast from the celebration, and I can just be right next. Once you get the reveal, I can just be right next to the camera and do the sound effects. So, for example, Bruce, do the quick reveal, not the reveal at the end, but the reveal of the toast.
Hello, everybody. I would like to make an announcement. My father, on this fine day, has quite a legacy. I'm waiting for the dinging.
No, keep going.
He he made such an impact on me in our life, especially when that one time that Mom walked in the room and well, let's say things weren't quite what they should have been.
Wow. See, you got Hans Zimmer music right there.
Yeah,
We did it all within Dogma 95 because it was real sad.
all within all within the rules. But okay, so that is our Dogma 95 episode. Any closing comments regarding your thoughts on Dogma 95, lasting impact regarding watching the last couple of weeks of Dogma?
I think it would be a good idea for anyone that's adventurous and maybe even not so adventurous, because there's enough of these and they're not well known enough that, and a lot of them you can't really tell what they are by the title alone. So maybe just go down the road, because this is like a good grab bag. You're gonna, you might not like all of them, or you might love some of them, but they're all at least going to be interesting. And knowing the rules ahead of time, at the very least, it'll give you something to kind of point out, like, they broke a rule there, or, oh wow, that's cool how they got around the rule on that thing, or so that or maybe the story's just so captivating that you don't even think about the rules and you're just like, oh wow, what happens next? Yeah, quite the grab bag, we'll say.
And Bruce, quite the grab. Any final thoughts regarding this?
Kind of what we got at before, and I think that what you and I picked are perfect illustrations of that. If you're kind of like I was, and you think like this is going to be this austere, super artsy, obscure bunch of movies, they aren't all. I mean, the Celebration, sure, it has some serious moments, but it's vastly entertaining, and it sounds like the movie Greg had and the movie I had were both pretty audience-pleasing kinds of small romantic comedies with some dramatic elements. I mean, so I think that don't judge the book by a preconception in this case,
Yes, and listeners, I definitely recommend Time for Beginners. Bruce Perky recommends Mifune, and the other one is The Breadbasket? Eric Holmes. Yes, the caveat regarding The Breadbasket: when you watch this 30-minute short film, The Breadbasket, we do suggest you not only follow the Dogma 95 rules when you are watching it, but please sync your eating real time with the main character in the short and see what happens at the end of
You'll
30
die.
minutes.
You'll die.
You really?
And you might even shit your pants.
Insert Mr. Creosote exploding right here from Monty Python.
Okay, and for our next director spotlight, Eric Holmes and Bruce Perky, I was gonna say they did me a solid, but the way this show goes, we have all these innuendos, and I don't like to, but they ultimately did me a solid by both of them. They purchased a movie called Toto the Hero, or in Belgium, I think they call it Toto le Héros. Oh my goodness. Eric Holmes, you have Toto the Hero. Bruce Perky, you will
I'm waiting for mine. It's in somewhere in the mail. It's coming.
Okay, so it's Jaco van Dormiel. Oh, and Rain. Oh my goodness. And did you get it that day when we were recording the podcast, Eric?
Yeah. As soon as we were done, I opened the door. I think one of the kids must answer the door and just set it right outside my room.
Okay, so
I got the best nieces and nephews ever. That's why.
Oh yeah, very good. Yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome people. But you know what? Very quickly regarding Jaco van Dormiel, I know very little about him. I don't remember if I actually did. I think I actually did interview him, but Toto the Hero, background information, I saw that as a film critic at the when I was at the UCLA Daily Bruin. I named it as my favorite film of the year, and I remember writing a review saying, before watching Toto the Hero, Cinema Paradiso was one of my favorite films of the last decade or something, and this movie ran circles around Cinema Paradiso. And then there was a journalist whom I admired, and he wrote for the LA Reader, and he said some critics, and he was picking on a college student, and this guy was in his mid-30s at the time. He goes, some critics have compared this to Cinema Paradiso, but I see no correlation, and I was heartbroken. What a thing to do to me, just a friggin' college student. But the reason why I have not seen I saw it twice. I have not seen it for the last, whenever that movie Eric Holmes was released, I think in 91 or 92, it made a real big impact on my life. So I was infatuated with a girl. Then I saw this movie, and then it set me on this path to eventually become a lonely heart sad podcaster. Find your film in cinematics. So that is the root of Toto the Hero. Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes. I just wanted to depress them about the movie before they do their research on Jaco van Dormiel. We'll be covering Toto the Hero and Mr. Nobody in 2 weeks. Mr. Nobody is the more popular of the films, and it's easy to find. It is headlined by, I think, Bruce Perky's favorite musician, Jared Leto, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Bruce Perky. If you didn't hear the sarcasm, there is a sarcasm was dripping. It was naturally dripping.
Jordan Catalano, he's so dreamy. He's such a dreamy.
And then he pulled out the Jordan Catalano reference. Very good, Bruce Perky. All right, Eric Holmes, this was your episode. You're taking us out. Final thoughts.
Good stuff. Check it out. I don't know who any of the directors. Oh, actually, here, hold on. Let me get the.
Are you cheating? Are you looking it up?
He's doing the shaky cam.
You're
doing the shaky cam.
What you want to do? And these movies are not real easy to find, but if you find them, I think you'll find a lot of diamonds in the rough, so to speak. In the rough. And then, maybe just maybe come on the Cinematics Facebook page, or if you could, maybe just hit up the Find Your Film. Hit us up on Find Your Film and tell us what you thought of the movies, and maybe watch a couple of them. Tell us which ones you liked, which ones you didn't, or maybe you like all of them. Who knows? That's the cool thing about a grab bag. You never know what you're gonna get. You just reach in there, and it could be a snake, or it could be a little puppy that you can pet. Just whatever it is. I hope you dig it, or if you don't, I hope we found something interesting in it. And thank you for listening.
Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.